All right, what's up, everybody? Great to be back. And we have a lot more than usual to talk about. We had a huge BNR announcement that I think is going to um, have a lot of change and ripple effects that we have to kind of discuss where things are going to head, what things are going to do. And also, we have PT around the corner. And I'm going to kind of just break down my initial process on kind of analyzing the meta, my thought process, how I kind of come to a lot of my conclusions. So if you this stream is going to be more about if you like the tier list, this is more the work that goes into coming up with the ideas of where the heroes are going. So it's probably at the end of the day, it's going to serve as one, right? Because we're going to have those discussions. I'm even going to pull one up just as a, moving this here. If this gets better, this gets worse, just mental exercises on ripple effects and things like that. So if you want to peek behind the curtain of kind of like how I look at things and things like that, this is the stream for you. And I hope you enjoy it. And other than that, outside of just that exercise, what we're also going to do is discuss the BNR, talk about the impacts, things like that, check in on that season. We obviously had Prism LL, which to me was pretty expected. And other than that, the BNR is the talk of the town or the thing that we have to kind of discuss the most because it's actually pretty massive, right? And so I guess let's not waste any time. Let's just hop right in. I mean, there's no real reason not to. So everybody should know the ban list by now, right? We had some unbannings, which were a couple misprinted cards, and then the blue somersault, which kind of doubting the actual impact here. And then talk a big game. We're also going to talk about that, right? And I actually have a funny story about that one, um, and a good example of how you can actually just waste your time by by not reading cards. And so yeah, we're going to talk about a ton of things. Okay. Uh, and then obviously we're going to save the best for last. So one thing I actually haven't read through the reasoning before. So we're going to skim through it a little bit, particularly for a card. I want to hear about the reason for Serenade because if I'm not mistaken, the reason it was banned is because they didn't want a misprinted card around there. So unbanning it, in my mind, doesn't really make sense, right? That like that's just not clicking for me. I don't know if they banned it for balance reasons and then use that as an example. I don't know what the thought process. So I'm really interested. So I'm going to kind of skip to that part actually, in trying to find it. So they talked about Acilio being basically just a limited filler, which was my theory, for you know half of the heavy hitters. To be honest, Betsy, Olympia, I felt like those were just they needed to fill a void for limited, so they created it. And they've done a lot since then, right? They made Log for Betsy, which made her a lot better, and they've made, they're in the process of making Mastery Pack Warrior and then also an Olympia Armory deck. So, you know, hopefully those heroes actually get there, but it doesn't change the fact that it was kind of like pointless for them to exist for almost 2 years now. So, it is what it is. In hindsight, this seems like it would be the correct call, referring to why print it at all. My my interesting thought here is we've learned this lesson before. Like I just gave an example of, um, I mean, you could make the argument that Max is the same thing. You needed something to actually work in limited, probably made Max. Um, like I don't know, like how do we say that this seems like it would have been the correct call if if we've done it before? That's a that's an honest question that I would pose, and I'm not saying that to like just blast LSS. I'm saying that just out of curiosity, and I just don't understand it. We have heard pretty loudly in recent times that fans want a shorter wait time, no wait time at all, and this is a debate that's always been happening. Um, this was an effort to deliver on that ask, but there were always trade offs. Okay. Um, Aurora's story is quite different as she squarely sits as a victim of external metagames, taking a different path from internal metagames. Internally, Aurora was and is a very good deck. She's a solid yet balanced aggro option that pressures board state decks well, can race mid range, keeps pace with aggro, and has to work hard to overcome fatigue. Within the internal dev environment, she also does not have to play against Victor Goldmane, Syndra, or Fi, as all of those heroes were forecasted to reach Living Legend by this moment in time. Fi I get because he has so many points. So making that assumption, I'm there. Same for Victor. He seems kind of like intentionally not they did not trim him in any shape, form, or fashion, purposefully, in my opinion. So that kind of makes sense. Syndra makes zero sense. I don't think she was ever close enough. They did a very aggressive ban. I mean, Wrath, Cinder, like we thought Cinder was going to LL after completely nuking her. I don't know about that. And then even then, I don't know what the point of this statement is in regards to Syndra and Fi, because the sentence before it says can keep pace with aggro. So if you're saying it can keep pace with aggro, what is the purpose of even stating that it wasn't tested in an environment with Syndra and Fi? And to be honest, I don't even think Syndra and Fi is remotely Aurora's problem. Victor is terrible for Aurora. And once Victor goes, I don't think Aurora's problem goes away. We won't go too deeply into how internal Living Legend modeling works, but it is a robust process that goes far beyond mere guesswork. But the reality is, no matter how good we think the process may be, it still relies on making some assumptions, and it is still altered in the real world by variance of point spikes, yes, and available big events. I agree with this, and that's why we lean on ban list. So this doesn't make any sense to me. When you banned Skyward, all right. First of all, okay, I understand what's actually happening here. So recapping the series of events. When they made the announcement ahead of time saying that these cards will be banned on a future BNR, we all remember that, right? When we actually found out CLV and Serenade were all going to be banned. This was like 2 months before, or some time before the BNR dropped. And my problem with this statement here is when you actually did the ban, when the set dropped, you knew Victor was here. You knew Syndra was here. You knew Fi was here. So everything that you tested in, the environment that you cultivated your decision on, did not exist. But yet, you said, yeah, let's send the ban list that we made 2 months ago or however long ago, even though it's nowhere, it doesn't look anything like what that doesn't make any sense. I understand if like you put yourself in a position where you said you're going to ban something, so you had to ban it, right? But in that situation, a week later, do a surprise unban, be like, look, she turned out to be super underpowered. We apologize. Here's this card. Um, I, none of this is making sense to me, to be unless I'm missing something. I don't know how you drop it. The set's only been out, what, 4 weeks? When you banned those cards, you knew these heroes were in there, but you went off the same information? Sounds like you made a decision and you just hoped that it stuck 3 months in the future, which is really dangerous. That's like I used to be a meteorologist. That's like me making a forecast, and then as things evolve and change, be like, nah, we made the forecast. We're not touching anything, right? We're just gonna keep what the original forecast was. We don't care that everybody's under 6 inches of snow. Doesn't matter. This just isn't clicking for me. I literally don't even understand what this is trying to convey. But as no matter how good we think the process may be, it still relies on making some assumptions, uh, which is typically viewed as a goal that we are aiming for, makes living legend forecasts difficult due to relatively flat dispersion of points. Sure. I mean, yeah, you can do a statistical analysis and project outcomes and all of those things, but your main driver, you're never going to build a model that's going to do that accurately. And the reason for that is if you can make a model that does that accurately, you would have a perfectly balanced game. Because you would have to be able to, one, determine and maybe their algorithm is off, or their formula is off, because in my observation, the most throughput for LL derives on played, not strength. So you can have a deck that's really good. Good example is, I don't know, Aurora the first Aurora is a great example. I don't think there was ever a meta where she was the best deck. Just being honest with you, I don't think there was ever that meta never existed. Okay, but she LL'd like lightning, no pun intended, and it was because so many people play, and you're never going to forecast that. I hate to break it. There's no model that's going to perform that. It's just not going to happen. So, I don't know. Really risky there. All of this means that sometimes we're just going to test for the wrong environment and then double down on it. In the future, perhaps we should be more proactive with us. You use a ban list to shape intended metagames. I don't think that's what we're asking for. I don't think anybody is asking or requesting to shape intended metagames. I think the requests that I have seen have been to make a new metagame. They don't care what the hell it is. But we were just in the same meta for 8 to 9 months, give or take, where it was Mario, a version of Wizard, and a Guardian, and then everybody was just kind of playing along. And then there was some ninja flying around every now and again. But like, I don't think you should ever try to shape a meta. I don't think anybody's asked for that. Nor would even want to see what that looks like at an attempt, to be honest. But we will have to weigh that decision. Sorry, something in my eye. We'll have to weigh that decision against trade-offs such as disappointing folks who want the card legality status of their decks to remain untouched. And once again, I don't know how you even do that. For now, we want to give Aurora a shot of adrenaline to help her close the gap on heroes she is up against in the real world. Skyward Serenade Unbanned is the best option. And there's no. Okay, Skyward Serenade may not be a card we view with fondness internally due to printing errors saw in existence. Deviates from how it was developed, but ultimately the needs of the game and Aurora trump our internal dislikes. Okay, so at least they clarified that. I support that. Finally, we come to Ziggy. Was the hero in Omens. The third age was meant to be built up over time. Okay, so at least they're. I don't want to use the word admitting because it's not a bad thing, but they're saying that they're intentionally releasing heroes that are being developed and not, you know, whatever the case may be. So it's just nice to see it on paper. Not saying it's good or bad, just good to see it. You'll see this process begin very soon with the release of Usurp the Shadow Throne. What does that mean? Does that mean we have an illusionist? Interesting. The idea of building a hero over time is one we are fond of, releasing all heroes immediately into the top of the metagame. Sure, get it. Give Ziggy back an interesting tool in the form of electromagnetic somersault blue. Again, Acilio precludes the most explosive choice. Like, okay, so they're saying because of Acilio is why they can't undo CLV. That's good to know. So it's not the flickering with Ziggy and things like that, because they're basically saying that if Facilio didn't exist, then they would basically give CLV. That's good to know. Third place finish, sure. The final, and then they just kind of left this vague or whatever, which is okay. And then I actually have read this small snippet about Remembrance, which, by the way, thank God. I'm really. I mean, it could be expansion slot cards, but I mean, are you really going to tip the hat at that for just one card? Like, how good a card are we talking? That doesn't like. That would mean that they're developing every hero, and I don't know. Some heroes are a lot less developed, you know. So I don't think just giving that to me, the way that it read was it's more than just a card. I mean, they had the whole damn hero release, the set, a whole armory deck, and then okay, we're kicking off after one expansion card. I don't know about that, Chief. It sounds like more than that is all I'm saying. So, all in all, the write-up aspect, the reasoning, half of it makes no sense. The metagame, it sounds like they made a decision. They had to stick with it, which put them in a tough spot. But then again, you know, they wanted to give everybody making and managing a card game is very tough. Because I guess I do have to kind of, you know, place some understanding on their end, because you do have a situation where maybe I get why they can't just unban it or make the decision not to ban after saying they're going to ban it, because then everybody's mad. Oh, I didn't buy them, or I sold them, and I, you know, this and that. Like, I get it. They would have got flamed, and that's fair. So maybe that just put too much pressure on to where they couldn't do something immediately, and now they're just playing catch up. That's a fair point. But I would love it to just say that if that is the reason. And I don't predicting which heroes are going to I mean, when the ban dropped, you knew what was currently existing in the metagame. And when the ban dropped, nobody thought Fi was going to LL. Nobody thought Fi was a hero. Um, and Syndra was far off, not climbing any points since Worlds. And of course, Victor's on his way out. Everybody kind of knows that. So I don't know. But the rest of it, the reasoning here, I like that they're putting a lot of these statements on paper. You know, they're just, you know, being honest. I do appreciate that aspect of it. So, Skyward Serenade obviously is going to be a very good, consistent piece for Aurora. It's also going to make Arc Lightning a lot better, right? Because more sources to go again. Overall, it's going to be a buff. Is it enough? That's the ultimate question. And in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be enough to like secure a spot at the very apex of the meta. I think she'll be a solid like lower A tier hero, maybe something in that ballpark. But she's not gonna just break the game and be 3 of in top 8 or anything like that. Hunter or hunted question mark exist. Okay. So you named one I can name 100 expansion slot cards that did not have the impact of hunter or hunted. And so I'm just going off of statistics, right? So yes, they've probably made, I don't know, 10 to 15 like high impact expansion cards that like actually fundamentally warped a hero. Things like Ring of Roses or Light Up the Leaves and like things like that. I don't know about, but they've printed like 200 that are like dog shit. Or I don't want to say dog shit, but like not, you know, either kind of play because you have to play it, or like, you know, not is what it is. So, but I mean, we'll find out shortly, right? It definitely, yeah. Bolden is a perfect example. Everyone, he's gotten dedicated legendaries, and he's still trash. But, you know, it is what it is. So, if you want to run theoreticals, then sure. I just think it's a little silly to assume a new illusionist is coming because we're promised Ziggy support over the obvious expansion slot. Well, we do have a Monarch-esque themed set on the horizon. Obviously with Chain, right? We haven't seen any sign of illusionist. But given the history of LSS's releases for sets, they try to do things in like sets, right? So if there's they do like warrior stuff, it's like all the warriors, then the brutes, then the guardians, right? And they do everything in waves. So there could be a whole tail end of light stuff that we just haven't seen yet, right? Maybe that's teaser, trailer 4, 5, and 6, or whatever their marketing strategy is. So I'm not only using the expansion slot logic, but also the fact that we're going into a set that we're the third set in the series, and everyone before has had illusionist in it. I don't think I'm reaching for the stars on that statement, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it could be, you know, sure. Like I guess anything is possible. It very well could not be illusionist, and it could be illusionist, and those cards don't even apply to Ziggy. That's another possibility. I just thought that the words were used very intentionally in a very specific way to kind of hint to something, because LSS loves doing that. They love being very directed in their words, and sometimes they don't. But you know, it is what it is. Bro, bro would like to debate you so bad. I mean, yeah. Light doesn't fit in set code unless we got only 2 classes, though. I mean, I don't know. It's clearly light mechanologist, Nathan. Yeah, I need to get caught up because I didn't even know that was a possibility. But, you know, So going back to the bands, we got to talk about the most important thing, and that is obviously remembrance. That is the most important, because it's going to change the landscape of the game. It just is, and I'll explain why. And that's we get to that point to where I know there's the argument that it's kind of like a prisoner's dilemma for remembrance. Like, okay, if you're going to play a fatigue deck, you're obviously going to have the remembrance, but if you're trying to beat fatigue, you need the remembrance. Um, but it's not really a prisoner's dilemma because the fatigue deck is always going to pack it because they have to, right? And they're the one that is setting the strategy of the matchup. Um, by saying, okay, I'm going to try to execute this very direct meta strategy. And then the other person just has to overcome it. That's it. But they don't really have a say so in that. You know what I'm saying? So then it becomes on every other person that you're playing. It's basically the AB equation. Like, do I play the AB because it helps very specific matchups? Is it even worth it? So some of them will, some of them won't. And ultimately, I think that whole dilemma benefits the fatigue decks more than it does the other ones. So if you are a person that does not like fatigue, I think this is an overall net win. Don't think of it as, oh, now I don't have ways to combat fatigue or things like that. Some decks, you're 100% correct. And I'm looking at you, Gravy, because Gravy took the biggest L from this ban. Victor took a big one, but he's on his way out anyway. And he's a good enough deck to where he's probably going to LL this weekend anyway. And if he doesn't, he's a solid enough deck to where he can squeak out a win somewhere. And so Victor, I don't even want to factor it into the discussion because I think he's gone this weekend for Nats, in my opinion, because there's a ton of big Nats. There's a lot of Nats. There's approximately like 3 times as many Nats this coming weekend as there were last weekend. And there's no Prism. And yeah, so I think that is, I think that Victor is gone. And there's some bigger ones, right? Like if he just wins UK, I think he's just gone, right? Depending on how many points come out of that. So yeah, Huntsman, like chat mentions, is another big one because now you got, he really depended on kind of saving that, putting the surgicals or the codexes in to kind of get those final cards from the opponent's hand at the very end of the game. So it is going to hurt Huntsman, which is ironic a little bit. And yeah, so ultimately, the biggest loser in this ban announcement, 100%, no questions asked, is Gravy Bones. I think Gravy just has the most to lose because now you have a lot of matchups. Like, what's a good example? Like anybody that has a decent number of attack action points or action points, and can actually defend decent, you're just going to be able to fatigue Gravy, like Kasai, something like that. It's just going to be so easy. Where before you kind of like that was always a possibility, but it wasn't like your main game plan. I think now you can just sit back and when they can't put 6 more boats in their, back into their deck, or it gets really tough really quickly. So Gravy's going to have a really hard time. And not only that, but look at the decks that would normally play Remembrance that are also getting hit. Those are the decks that Gravy pretty often likes to see, like Victor, or not Jarl's a bad example because he can blow up Compass, but you know what I'm saying, the slower decks, Pleiades, something like that, like those fatigue style decks is typically what Gravy kind of just thrives on. And those decks are going to also take a hit accordingly with the Remembrance ban. So overall, if you're a fatigue player, you're probably not happy with this ban, and that's understandable. But just understand that Fatigue is probably just going to warp into another version. I don't know if that is a just a very defensive version of mid range to where we get to like that, I don't know, outsider esque where like every game technically ended in fatigue, but it was like life based, and where you had to spend too many cards on break points at the end of the game, and that's how you ultimately got fatigued. That could be the new avenue for new versions of fatigue, whatever the case may be. So be on the lookout for those adjustments, those changes. It's very interesting to kind of see how they'll adapt. And of course, there will always be just raw fatigue. Like, fatigue's not dead because remembrance is gone. I'm just saying it's not as good as it was. And I reckon fatigue you're always still okay, even with this ban. Actually, not really, because in a lot of matchups, the game plan was to just cycle Oakenotes, right? Like you get to that end game state, and your win con in a lot of matchups was just to cycle the Oakenotes. You can't do that. Now you got to do like weird, inefficient shit like So Tomorrow, or I don't know. Uh, Side note, they probably could have given Jarl Plume back. I think they were kind of being a bully by not doing that, um, especially with Remembrance gone. But nor here nor there. So, but if you're a Gravy player, I apologize. There's just nothing else. I think Huntsman got hit the hardest. Yeah, he definitely got hit. Huntsman is not a happy camper, as ironic as it is. So we're really expecting the ability for just mid range has one hell of an opportunity in this meta. If you can combat fatigue, I mean, and maybe that's the reason that they decided not to hit Acilio is they needed that combo aspect to kind of keep the game in check and it not become like heavy hitters, just mid range soup, whatever the case may be. Um, which we were always, to be honest, no, we're not anywhere near that. But if you remember back in the heavy hitters meta, it dwindled. It was so math diluted, whatever you want to call it, that Hatchet's Dory was one of the best decks in the format, and that deck is, you don't need a PhD to play it. Is all I'm saying, and it's just it's crazy. So that is my initial analysis of just kind of remembrance and the impacts, because there is a lot of stuff, right? Like there's a lot of things that we're gonna have to consider. Talk a big game. That one is, if you I'm gonna tell a funny story. Okay, so I was in a chat with Damien, Jason Rolfe, and I think it was uh, Thomas. Thomas was also in there, and we we had the idea of making a Pleiades deck with a bunch of auras, suspense auras, and we were just gonna pump a bunch of shit up, make a confidence token, and play talk a big game. And we built this whole deck. Spent like 20 minutes on it, and we were like, "Yeah, man, we just pump all the auras say next attack, not attack action card, so we can like make it super consistent, shit ton of auras, just weapon swing, done, right?" And we were like, "Bro, this is gonna work." And we play our first game. I'm playing against Damien. He's on Aurora. We need something that was a little fast, but not too fast. Actually, draw some hands and figure it out. So I line up this triple suspense aura, double talk a big game, okay? And I swing my hammer for, I don't know, it was like 17 or some shit. And I was like, talk a big game for 11 because he has like no block cards or anything like that. So I was like, 11. You ain't got 2D reacts. You might have one. So he got you know how when you block in Talishar, it shows the card backs before he actually like hits the pass button. Well, he lines up 3 cards and then something clicked. I was like, oh shit, what's happening? And It was at that moment when he hit pass and those cards flipped over. I was like, it has confidence. What's going on? Confidence does not apply to the weapon. Lesson learned. We completely wasted probably 20 minutes to 30 minutes, give or take. Deck building an idea that was literally not operational from like the get go. But it was hilarious. We were crying. Um, it was so bad. But if it did apply to weapons, bro, that would be actually dope. But yeah, and you might say, "Oh, just throw some attacks in there." That is trash. Because then you have to you already have to sit on talk a big game, and then you have to have auras, and then you have to also have an attack that you have to pay for. So that's too. It's like too much shit that's got to line up. So then it just becomes shit if it just doesn't apply to the weapon. So just my advice to y'all: read when your card revolve or when your strategy revolves around a card. The first thing you should do is read that card. Not once, not twice, but like 3 or 4 times. Just read it. Save yourself some time. So, it was fun. Building it was fun. That was cool. But yeah, here we are. So, funny little story to boot. But as far as talk a big game, there's obvious implications here. There's like Rhinar and there's the obvious ones that you can bake in some evasion, like Lyeth and things like that that people are trying to experiment with. But how good that strategy is going to come down to how consistent it is. It's as simple as that. So if it becomes consistent, it'll be good. If not, it's not going to be great. So we will ultimately kind of see how that plays out. And I'm very interested to see how that plays out. So, but as of right now, I can't really make until somebody has a very consistent deck list version, then there's no real. I think it's great in Rhinar. I mean, sometimes it's just a good blue that blocks 3. And sometimes you just get some value out of it. You like intimidate their whole hand. And you just do whatever the number is minus their armor or whatever. And it might convert good in the end game, something like that. So overall, pretty happy with the BNR. I think this is a really good one. Really there's some stuff in here that is kind of sus, but it is what it is. So sorry, I was reading this. Often sets are designed and developed not only with a focus on new heroes, but also a very hard focus on updating an existing member of the cast. In the case of Omens of the Third Age, we came in with the expectation that the original Cilio would be the primary lightning wizard beneficiary from the expanded card pool. See, I need to stop reading this. So you made a set where the best deck in the format gets the most out of it. Or is this like you knew you had to ban a bunch of stuff like Volzar and stuff like that, so you had to create a whole bunch of cards to make them playable? I yeah, that's reasonable. That's right. I'm gonna stop reading this. Yeah, I'm gonna stop reading this. Okay, so now we have to actually discuss the meta. We have to talk about what's going on, what's some stuff that's changing, and what are some things that we have to be on the lookout for, because there's a lot of things on the horizon that we kind of got to talk about. And that is going to be, so we're just going to we're not going to fill out the tier list, but we're going to kind of show where maybe things were, and where things are kind of going to go. So prior to this, where is Victor was really good. Kasaya was a pretty good deck. This one was good. This one turned out to be good. Jarl was pretty good. Fang. Acilio is really good. Okay. Prism's gone, so we're not even gonna waste time talking about her. Okay. And then here's Vinny as well. Okay, so this was kind of the meta, and they're not in left to right order or anything like that, but this is just kind of like what the meta kind of looked like going into Nat season, right? And uh I think the let's talk about strictly just remembrance. Okay, who in this setup is getting burned the most from remembrance leaving? Because we have to look at this meta in two waves. Okay, you have a remembrance leaving, and then you have the LL and heroes leaving. Okay, so we're gonna do them one at a time because I think it's very important to do that in steps. Because the bigger you try to analyze one ripple, the more likely you are to be wrong than doing smaller ripple than smaller ripple. Um, so we're gonna do remembrance first. So Gravy takes a massive hit, right? Just, I mean, absolutely gets dumpstered by this ban, unfortunately. I hate to say it. And then Jarl also takes a hit, but can recover. So we're gonna just place them down there and then I'm gonna make the assumption that Victor is going to LL. So that is give us chart back, you coward. And then so I'm gonna make the assumption, okay, which we're gonna do in the second wave. So these change, okay? So if Gravy and maybe Jarl take a hit, maybe. Who stands to gain from their departure? That's the question that we have to answer. Okay, or what kind of changes from them? Vinny gets a lot better, right? So theoretically, Vinny gets better because this was a tough matchup. This was probably a less than ideal matchup. So Vinny theoretically would get a lot better. However, I'm going to humble her a little bit because those boots are insane, specifically into her. Yeah. So everything else here, I don't think anything really changes. Acilio probably gets a tad worse because this was a really good matchup for Acilio historically. But is there anything here that just gains a lot from these people departing the meta? And the only thing that kind of comes to mind is Dio doesn't say anything to gain because technically we're doing one ripple at a time, and that is her biggest enemy is obviously Victor. Warriors lose a lot because they can specifically Don Blade Dory kind of picks on Gravy, so you lose points there. You don't gain anything. I don't know what heroes here really gain a lot. I bet actually Ziggy probably gets a little bit better because you don't have to worry about this. This is very annoying for Ziggy, probably. Just speculating. So really like the main winner for these two dropping out that are not already here is probably just Ziggy. I don't know what your active RKO. I mean, RKO. Let's think about that. RKO does not want to see Gravy. I concur. Okay. That's fair, actually. I'm gonna put him here because I'm not like, I don't think he's gonna come out of the gate, but I understand your point. You're right. You are correct. RKO is so sad about Victor, and we're gonna get to that, right? But yeah, all the rest of these are pretty straightforward. That's pretty much it. I don't know what else really changes from. So we've just talked about remembrance. Okay, remembrance is gone. Now we're gonna go kind of phase two of this, and that's the LLs, right? And the two LLs that we're looking at is Victor, definitely, maybe Phi. I don't think Phi is really. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I think the reason you play Phi is because of Victor. In every other application, I think Syndra's probably the better deck. But That's just my opinion. And so if Victor leaves, whether Fi LLs or not, I think you lose a lot of the reason to play Fi. So the net impact to the deck is basically non-existent, or it doesn't matter. Huntsman is a deck, not really in this most recent metagame. He was pretty much nowhere to be found. Did some, show up and play? Sure, but I mean, Huntsman does not have a great Victor matchup. Like, as much as people would love to say he does. So after that, so these heroes are gone. So now we do the Victor analysis, and this is where things really start moving. So when Victor leaves, what gets better? That's the question we have to ask. And ultimately, here's the interesting part. I think the ninjas obviously get better. There's no question there. That's kind of what a lot of them worried about the most. Maybe Fi not so much, because he kind of like the reason you played Fi. But just normal ninja that's outside of Fi loves seeing Victor go. Other than that, Mario's probably Vinny's definitely excited about it, right? And once again, these are not power rankings. I'm just visualizing ups and downs. That's all I'm doing. Ups and downs, just visualization. I'm not saying Vinny's S tier. I'm not saying Syndra's S tier. That's not what I'm saying. And Ziggy probably takes a hit, to be honest. I think you get a lot of value from the refractor plan with Victor leaving. So we're gonna do this to kind of just visualize a little bit better, so it's not as clunky. And then, so what comes into the meta at Victor's departure? Well, now here is everything. Dio straight to the top of the list. Aurora becomes relatively playable. Somebody mentioned Slippy. I don't hate the idea. It seems pretty solid. It's not the first thing I would jump to, but I understand the argument. It makes sense. Katsu becomes an actual deck to consider. Anything else? Rhinar, you lose a lot of equity because you kind of liked that matchup because you're trying to do the whole intimidate game plan. So Rhinar loses some equity a little bit. Somebody tell me about Puffin. Does Puffin get better, worse with Victor gone? Whatever the case may be. OG Acilio is playing like OG Aurora. That is so sad. The next step is to delete class identity. Wizard going all attacks, no arcane. Wizard should rely on arcane damage as their core game plan. It doesn't bother me, honestly, that there is no identity. It does kind of suck, but at the same time, the part that irks me is you have like a full arcane list, and you have the combo version, and that whole go fish before the match starts mini game of just that feels bad of like, oh, he's a full arcane, I sideboarded wrong. It's kind of annoying. It's something I've never enjoyed. Like, I don't mind switchboard, don't get me wrong, but like Dash is a healthy example, right? Like, if I sat across from a Dash, I would be like, okay, based on the deck that I'm playing, they should do X. They could do the other thing, but it's probably not in their best interest to, if I'm practiced enough. But if there's two that do completely separate things and are on polar opposite ends of the spectrum, then I'm just fucked. Like, I'm just guessing. I'm just throwing darts at a dartboard. Yeah, you can make the argument that there's value in analyzing the metagame, but there's counter analysis as well. Like, maybe, everybody's expecting combo. I'm gonna bring a bunch of arcane. Like, and it just feels bad. You have that situation where there's like Scepter Flooring was another good example, and they banned the shit out of it. Like that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's a very good example, actually, where you just didn't know. You didn't know what they were trying to do, so you just shot yourself in the foot to hedge, because if you didn't, you auto lost, and it was just the worst game on the planet. It's just a terrible experience. And Acilio is creating that same environment. So, in my humble opinion, they're not going to do this because it's the only Lightning hero that's actually causing any form of excitement right now. They're not going to ban him anymore or ban. They need to let go of Gone in a Flash. That's what needs to happen. But I understand why they haven't done it, because that's like literally the only exciting thing in the new set, and it's not even in the new set. So like that's what should have happened light years ago. Gone in a Flash should never be a card. You've already banned 14 different cards around it. When the ultimate problem is a card that is infinite, right? Just a thought. So, let's see. How's Teklo into the quicker decks? I didn't get anything hit in the BNR. That's a good question, and I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm never shy away from just saying I don't know if I don't know, and that's one of those questions that I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. But the only reason to play Puffin is because Dio is going to LL. I understand. Dash is still full fatigue / still got it. Yeah. If I sideboard wrong into you, I lose. Is miserable, and split between arcane physical is a really good example of that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think his 2 modes are okay personally. Sounds like a miserable tournament experience. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. So Omens was designed around Gone in a Flash. Well, they designed around a mistake. In my opinion, and I love the card. I think it is exciting, and you should have those exciting cards. But we've seen this playbook play out. When we've seen it 1,000 times, where they have something that's neat, powerful, and okay, keep Gone in a Flash. Get rid of the damn lightning boots. I don't care which one you do. Just pick one and get it out of here. Because they can't exist together. To be honest, that's probably the better ban, is the boots, to be honest. I mean, you just can't do it. You literally just can't have infinite action. Not infinite action points, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, you just can't do it. Like, and the answer is not to ask your entire player base to play 3 Bales. That's not the answer. That's not the appropriate answer. James White doesn't get the ability to tell us all to play fucking Bales from Everfest just to have a inkling of interaction into a deck. Like, God. Oh, man. Oh, we've just seen this play out 100 times. Something interesting, cool, fun, interactive, whatever you want to call it. And it's just does not fit well with the design space, and you design so much around it to the point to where it becomes critical in nature and you can't walk away from it. A good example of this is Voltaire. I don't know. It's a good example. I would say literally Chain in his entirety. A lot of people would probably say Rosetta Thorn is another good example. Just so much, you taper the hero down. You say, all right, this isn't a good example. You let us play with Rosetta Thorn in CC for 2.5, 3 years, and then you ban it in LL? Please tell me how that makes sense. God, like it, brother. Ain't no fucking. That's actually a good point. If Omens was designed around Gone in a Flash, they should have reprinted it. That's actually a good point. Sometimes you just accept you can beat one and can't beat the other, in my experience. Yeah, but so I don't care about the win-loss. I care about the experience. You sit down, and I know a lot of people are going, oh, well, that's just a Kano Guardian matchup. No, 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 no. The difference there is if I play Guardian, I have walked into a tournament saying that if I run into a full Arcane Wizard, I'm going to lose the game. I am actively making an educated hedge, whatever you want to call it, or I've said this risk is worth the reward. And if I sit down and they present the hero, I signed up for this. But when the equation is not you lose to a hero, but you've planned for one version of the hero, but the other version exists and is equally relevant, now you're just kind of screwed. Like, it's just feels bad. It's like, no matter what you choose, you're wrong. Either you hedge a little bit and you sacrifice a lot in every one of the matchups, or you don't hedge at all, and then if you guess wrong, you just feel defeated the whole game. Oh, this is not an accurate tier list. We were just showing motions up and down. Gravy is not F tier. He's close, but he's not F tier. That's not what this looks like. Flipping a coin when sitting against a hero and going heads if I win. Heads I win, tails I lose is a lot worse than seeing 90-90 log. Exactly, I agree. The worst part about your example that you gave is it's not if it's heads I win, it's tails I lose. That's not the correct comparison. The correct comparison is if I call heads and it lands on tails, I lose. If I call heads and it lands on heads, well, now we get to just play a normal game. I'm not guaranteed anything. We just get to play the game that I planned for. And then there's all the variants baked within that. And it's just kind of shit, to be honest. And Gravy is not in F tier. That is not what. My God. All right, let me fix this because everybody's just reading it, and this is not an active tier list. It's not what this is. We were showing motions up and down. So the worst part is one of the. I'm going to sound like an absolute hypocrite, right? One of the absolute worst aspects, in my opinion, of Flesh and Blood is the amount of siloing, right? And if you don't know what I mean when I say siloing, I mean like warrior card pool is a great example, right? Two-handed sword, axes, one-handed swords, one-handed axes, I don't know, scimitars that are swung on Tuesdays, whatever the daggers that never existed. But like, every Fang player was like, "Excuse me." I said what I said. No, but so they silo in a lot of those areas. Silo or siloing all of those different heroes is a version of balancing without actually banning cards, because you're basically artificially restricting the card pools, which is, it's not my favorite way to do it, but people say that it's a non-rotation game, but that is a form of rotation in my opinion, just from observation. But the reason that we're in this situation is no siloing. So basically what you did was you didn't do that thing, and it created this problem over here because it's not a rotating game. Because if it was a rotating game, you wouldn't have Aether Flare, wouldn't be a problem. Like this problem does not exist outside of it not having rotation. So I guess this is a good example of what happens when you don't silo enough. Maybe certain heroes are more susceptible than others, but um so yeah. So let's actually finish with kind of the analysis. So we talked about Remembrance going, which kind of hurt Gravy and Jarl. Then we talked about Victor LLing, okay? And we talked about that kind of opened the window a little bit for RKO and Slippy, not a huge amount, but the real winners, I think, are probably Katsu, Dio, and Syndra are probably the biggest winners because we could say Vinny gains a lot, but like chat has mentioned, you have Scour, there's a lot of other things. I think as the Vinny players have had to kind of heads for the slower matchups, the blocky formats, and put them on better Havoc kind of situations. What I've found that Vinny has lost a lot of equity in those matchups where she was historically really good at just doing the trading back and forth. So you're kind of on a spectrum where you can either be really good in the trading back and forth, or you sacrifice a little bit of that to be able to play better against somebody that's just blocking you and making you be a consistent deck with inconsistent cards. And it seems like that is tilted toward that. So as the point of me saying that is historically people would probably make the assertion that Dio and decks like Syndra and stuff like that are easy matchups for Vinny. They're just so easy matchups. I don't think they're probably still okay. They're probably still even good, maybe slightly, but I don't think they're going to be anywhere as good as those older versions with a lot of 4 blocks and things like that. And you're going to have a little bit more of a tough time is the point that I'm ultimately trying to kind of, that's kind of what I'm advocating to. Aether Flare, 6'9". Waning Moon memes, 0201, Striders. Oh my goodness. Counter Burn is kind of a dog in this meta if it's aggro as it looks. Yeah. And that could definitely be the case, right? So, but once again, all it takes is one Aaron Grace to ruin your day. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. You're like, I'm with you, Thomas. I agree that the combo version of Vasilio is the better one of the two. So I'm going to go into the tournament and I'm going to assume that they're combo. And then somebody's going to throw an Aether Flare at me and I'm going to flip the table. That's what's going to happen. And there's probably a lot of other people that's going to happen because somebody either just likes the wizard identity. I don't give a fuck what the reason is. It's going to happen. And we just can't stop it. I mean, and that is I've never played a game, a card game, or anything where it gave me options where I can't really be right. And it just doesn't feel right. I don't. This is not a tier list. It's not a tier list, Damien. We're just showing vertical motion to explain who's the winners, who's the losers of the situation. It's not a overall. So I just like I get like Ira as an example, right? Like having a more mid-rangey Ira versus an aggro, and you kind of that's okay because the spectrum is not way over here, right? And it doesn't involve Arcane. That's That's the real pickle, right? Because it's not something that you can just adapt to with good and thorough gameplay because you play Flesh and Blood 18 hours a day. No, you don't have AB, so you die to Aether Flare. The end. There's no outplaying it. There's no. It's just not good. But there's no way. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. There's no way that in Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm. God, what was that? I played starter deck. It was Monarchs. I think you summon them and they like blow some shit up. Those cards probably suck nowadays. But I used to play like the sack one Monarch, whatever, and basically summon Skull with effect because it was like in starter decks and shit. But like if I play against Monarchs, there's not like one that's like way over here doing this thing and then way over here doing this thing, but still considered Monarch deck. It doesn't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe it does now because they have, Pendulum summon, Extra summon, UPS FedEx summon, like overnight summon. Like they got all these different. Maybe that exists now. I don't know because I refuse to play the game. But like to me, and I'm not speaking on fact or anything like that. I'm just strictly explaining how I feel in those situations, and it seems like a lot of people also kind of agree that it's just a feels bad moment that has no net EV, period. It's because I planned for the wrong thing due to my decision or theirs, because you can plan for the statistically correct thing and then one person or not just one person, but like a number of people bring the other one. There's nothing. I couldn't have been a better player. I couldn't have had more skill expression because mathematically there is a better choice. So we're just playing this little mini game, and I was either right or I was wrong. And the worst part is, it would feel a lot better if it was what the person in chat previously mentioned, where if I was right, I auto won the game, and if I was lost, I would auto lose. That I would even be okay with. A classic coin flip situation. But it's not that. Like I mentioned before, it's flip a coin. If I'm wrong, I auto lose. If I win, we get to play a fair game of Flesh and Blood. And that is not equal. The mathematical average between those two scenarios is not 50-50. Okay? So that is... it also makes scouting a necessity. That's another good example, which gives hedge towards teams, which, I'm not even going to get into that discussion because that's a whole different thing. But yeah, you're 100% right. All in all, I think it's shit. I think LSS knows that situation is shit because they banned Scepter. There was nothing broken about that Florian deck. There was nothing broken about that Florian deck. To be honest, it was kind of trash. Okay? The only reason it was good was because of the guessing. That's it. It was just good enough that if you mix in those extra percentage points, it actually becomes a good deck. And they realized that that's not good for the game. So here we are. Same situation. Literally identical, in my opinion. Here we are. So, we'll see if anything happens. Probably not, to be honest. Because once again, they are incentivized to hang on to Acilio for as long as possible because he's the only Lightning hero actively being played to any reasonable percentage. Maybe that fixes a little bit with Aurora coming in, maybe a little bit more, but I don't expect things to drastically change. So, that is my opinion. So, with these changes, okay, so now we're kind of looking, okay, now can we identify any gaps in the meta, any opportunities. Okay. So we know our I'm gonna go ahead and say that Benny probably down there. I'm gonna say the boogeymen of the format are probably going to be these 3 decks. Now, when I say, or these 4 decks. Now, when I'm using Syndra, I'm just using that as ninjas, okay? Not any particular one. When I'm saying Kasai, I am not referring to warriors. I am referring to Kasai. Let's just get that correct. Um, if that's your reasoning for banning Scepter Florian, then they're going to ban Aether Greaves and Organa Flash when they release more Aphrodite's support. But I mean, I hope they do. But my question to that would be, why do we have to wait? Why do we have to go through a shitty experience, quote unquote, to get to something that is going to happen? Like historically, LSS's weakest thing that they routinely do, in my opinion, is not acting quick enough. And we've seen it multiple times. They're getting better at it. I will give them that 100%. They've earned that. But I, there, there's no reason that we have to go through all of this while we're planning to build that out. Just doesn't. They just don't need to coexist. Doesn't. So, my opinion. I don't know. So these 4 heroes are going to be heavily involved in the meta, and you need to have an active gameplay. Now, we kind of have all the things here. We have the aggro decks, we have the combo decks, and we have the mid range. Okay. We're obviously missing one piece here. Technically 2. Okay. And one may or may not be able to actually survive. So first is, what does new fatigue look like if Victor is gone and Remembrance is gone? What is the new best fatigue deck? And that honestly has to be answered, because we need to know whether it's viable. Is the crazy part. And I don't think Teklo's any good into all of this aggro. That is speculation. I don't actually know. Because there could be a situation. I mean, it might still be Jarl. I don't know. It's not Huntsman. I think Huntsman is nowhere near that conversation. Maybe it's a Log Betsy build. Once again, I don't know what the new best fatigue. I gotta have a giant text box that says not a tier list, bro. Oh God. So I really do. I really do. So if these are the 4, maybe it's better if we just get rid of these. Then people will just like stop. It's like, actually stop. Okay. Maybe now people will realize. Huntsman does not seem okay without Remembrance, because you can't manufacture. Most Huntsman games that go to fatigue are one a very specific way. Okay, 1, the Huntsman has very few cards left in deck, and 2, they're at very low life, and at 3, you usually strip their last cards with Codex/Surgical Extraction. That is typically how a fatigue game ends with Arachne. If you cannot do that, or you have to pitch your Codex because you can't play them first cycle, or whatever the case may be, that means you have to win on the axis of value and cards. Because if there's ever that, like, say you're playing against a Kasai and you're trying to fatigue them, right? Like, there comes a point in the game to where they can just swing sword, and you're going to die or run out of cards. But the whole way that Huntsman solved that problem was we're going to get down to that game state, and I'm going to play a surgical and get your last card, or your last 2 cards, or whatever, kind of happen. And so I just think that creates too many hoops. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that is a hill that I would die on. I think that Huntsman, as much as I literally played him at Worlds. I like the hero, but I think he's a very, very bad pick in this next meta. Like, actually a horrendous pick. Like, I would be generous to give him C tier. I think he's actually that bad, which is crazy to say because, he's been on the up and up. But I think this really just changes things. And it may not click for a lot of people until you actually play the games out, but it's massively, massively impactful. Huntsman has its own, it says recursive, but I'm assuming it says recursion. Package cards. It can board the 3 for 7, block 2 that grabs a card back, call for backup. You mean the one that lets the opponent put the card back? Give and take. I'm just not going to block it. I'll take 3. You're taking gravy to PT, and I'm so nervous. That's a terrible idea, to be honest with you. Yeah, call for backup is a card neutral red 2 block. Exactly what Thomas said. Because once again, it's not just cards. You have to not die. And into aggro, that's going to be a lot easier said than done. So, just my opinion. So, it is what it is. I think Huntsman's really bad. So, I don't know what, going back to my original point, I don't know what the best fatigue deck is. And because I can't easily identify a simple path, fatigue might just be dead in its current form. Because it doesn't help the fact that you got combo in the top decks with Acilio, right? That's not a good thing if you're playing that. And then you also have consistent throughput with Syndra / Phi. Once again, the Syndra is just ninjas, okay? Since everybody's taking everything so literal with a tier list, we got to actually put them all up there. Okay? Maybe because we have more heroes in S tier, they know it won't be real. Okay. So, like, if you're trying to fatigue, like, you're very susceptible here, you're susceptible here, you're really susceptible here, right? It becomes very not advantageous if what we know you're bringing is a lesser fatigue deck. Like, you would almost have to have something that's like Pleiades level of strength, but you're going to lose Millers. That deck becomes a lot worse. There's just a lot of things, all in all, that get worse with that deck. Remembrance was a big impact as well. So that is, things that we have to consider. So, all in all, I don't think there's a really good fatigue list out there. Or on the surface. I'm not going to make a bold statement like that. I'm just saying on the surface, there's not a, yep, this block's the best. We're going to go with this. I'm sure somebody will make one. Somebody will make probably a Guardian. I don't know. Hell, maybe a Ziggy. I literally don't know what it would look like. But whatever it is, it's worse than Goober Victor. I guarantee you that. Okay? So with that being said, most of the meta should revolve around these 3 archetypes. The mid-range deck, which there's more than one deck. There's more than just Kasai that can kind of fill this void. There's some other ones. Log Betsy is respectable, not where the angle that I would take, but respectable. You could probably Vinny would probably fit in that boat. Same for Ziggy. There's several options that fit that mid range category, right? And the ultimate question becomes the aggro decks, in my opinion, are very well positioned into the combo deck. Okay. So that makes me a little nervous because all four of these decks, other than maybe Phi, because Phi is plagued by something very similar to Acilio, where you're really just trying to get a certain card. This one's the Phoenix Art of War, and this one is obviously Gun Flash. These three don't need any particular card. They will just kill Acilio. Same thing for Phi. So that's another reason why I think Phi actively gets a lot worse because what's going to happen is Phi was there to kind of pick on Victor. That was the reason he was one of the premier aggro decks is because he had game into there. But now when you have consistent aggro decks going into you and you're very dependent on your draw, it makes it much more less advantageous to actually bring the hero. So Phi to me just takes a massive hit. I just don't understand once Victor leaves, once Gravy's gone, once all of these things happen, why you bring this hero? It's not bad. I'm not hating on it. I don't think the hero's bad. I don't think the hero's bad. But at the end of the day, I just don't think I think there are better picks that do relatively the same thing because ultimately you're trying to race down these heroes, race down these aggro mirrors, and survive against Kasai or the other mid-range decks. Like that's what you're actively trying to do. And going all in on drawing a very particular card just seems not worth it, in my opinion. So that leaves these 5 decks. Now, Katsu has a big problem with the boots because the boots technically just counteract the breaking skills if they're on that or if they're on the Shuko plan or whatever those things are. Hovering the +1 doesn't have the impact that it used to because the opponent can hover the defensive +1 at the same time. And you just even block, and if they ever pop it, you pop it, and you just trade equipment. And the unfortunate part is that actually hurts Katsu more than the opponent because it's an equal trade and you're denying searching cards, which is not good. Put Phi in C tier so we can top 8 again. I tell you what, but where is he now? Where is he now? Okay. And also, on that same tier list, I put Gravy as Victor as best decks. And who was in the finals? I'll wait. Chat. Who was in the finals of US Nats? Was it Gravy Victor? Oh, no way. No way. So your boy was right. I'm just saying. It ain't easy being this good. Not easy. Okay. But in all seriousness, I think that the boots, I'm going to talk a lot about the boots. I always have been talking a lot about the boots. Like the boots are insane. Okay. So Katsu does get a bump by Victor leaving, obviously, and Remembrance going. But because of the boots kind of tailor him down, I think he's a good pick, respectable pick. I think he'll have a great window, but he's just a riskier pick. And some people will lean into it. You know, go for like if that's your thing, go for it. So it is what it is. So we basically have Dio, which to be honest, Dio is one of the few decks where you can just hedge for both Acilios equally, almost. So I know we played a meta where there were not a lot of Warmongers diplomacy. I think that's about to change. I think that card's going to go right back into a lot of decks. And to be honest, the biggest problem, sorry guys, I'm tired. Biggest problem with this deck, and here's my ultimate prediction. I think this deck is going to go off to a screaming start. Okay. And when I say screaming, I mean if there is a calling or two between the end of Nats and the beginning of the Pro Tour, I don't know if there is or isn't, but if there is, this deck is in top 8. Guaranteed your money back. That is literally where that deck is going to live. Okay. The problem is I think that there will be a pretty good drop off as a lot of these decks start to incorporate their diplomacies and their erase faces or whatever they decide on, whatever they land on. And if you've ever played Dio, a diplomacy just being played out is not the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is when a ninja is throwing a bunch of damage at you, you eat 12 because you have this amazing hand, and then they play a diplomacy. That is how you lose the game on the spot. And we have literally spent most of the time talking about ninjas. So, in this event, and once again, if you're also playing ninja, you can beat this deck before it finds the combo. You can actively kind of race the arcane a little bit, not so much. That's where it gets a little iffy. And then this one, I'm not as sure on kind of how this one kind of plays out. Probably Kasai favored, to be honest. But it is what it is. So all of that to say, I expect Dio to have a screaming start straight out of the gate, but then have a little bit of a dip. Not a huge dip, but just as people are proactively teching for it and things like that. And maybe it happens right out the gate because people just know it. It's so obvious that there is a scenario where maybe we just skip that phase, right? And everybody just goes straight to playing diplomacy and erase phase. And it just is what it is. So that is my initial thoughts. And I know the stream name was, prepping for Pro Tour, but this is me visualizing what my deck choices are. This is kind of just me looking at the field and saying, okay, these are the most on the nose. And I know a lot of people have mentioned Liath and things like that in chat. That's just unproven to me. I haven't seen a list that's really just taken me in and like, yeah, oh yeah, this is the sauce. This is going to do it. I haven't seen that yet. So if that may change things for me, I don't know if it even exists. I don't even know if it exists. So maybe. I don't know. I don't know if Talk a Big Game is that serious or not, or if there'll be 0 copies in top 8. I have no clue because I have not seen a consistent strategy executed. I've seen some cool photos of talent short games of people that forgot to block and you make 27 might tug. I've seen those pictures. But we saw the same shit when Fire released and everybody's playing Phoenix Form and they were like, oh yeah, I did 57 damage with only 3-card hand. And turned out they were just playing an absolute NPC, bro. Like, and somebody that just literally did not block and let them draw 14 different cards. Like, of course you can do all that damage, okay? So there might be something similar going on with those deck builds. I'm not saying that that's the case, but just if don't be persuaded by the pictures of 20 mites. Okay, there's a story behind those, and not all of them are good. Okay, so that is kind of just the TLDR on my analysis. Now, my steps going forward. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see how these ninjas play in, because I'm going to keep it a buck. I don't know if I want to actually take the time to learn this hero. I think it's a great pick. I think it's a really good pick. but we got 2 weeks ish, right? And I don't want to play this shit. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. And we're also gonna throw Aurora in there. Maybe we might be able to play around with something, make something happen. I don't know. Okay. But we're gonna start here. Okay. And we're gonna first solve this problem. If we get the check, I know we can solve this problem. So I'm just gonna take that one. I know if we tech for it, we're good. We can figure it out. This should be okay. We're gonna compare these. Okay. And then also Aurora. And then we're going to spend a good amount of time figuring this out. And if or whatever the mid-range deck is, whatever that is, we're going to figure out how that kind of plays into these aggro decks. And if there is game for the aggro decks, or is it just that's a bad matchup, which is not where I want to be. And if that's the case, then I don't know. But this is ultimately your triangle, quote unquote. You have your mid-range that is bad into combo / arcane, and that beats up on the aggro decks theoretically, and then you have the aggro decks, which is Dio and ninjas, that can kind of outrace the combo deck in the arcane and kind of can struggle into the mid-range. So this is our triangle. It has been established, or not has been established, but I think it will establish in a version that looks like this. Are the heroes correct? Probably not. I've had exactly 48 hours to think on this. So we have not solved the meta in 48 hours, as much as I appreciate the confidence of all of you and me to even imagine that that's possible. It's just not possible, right? Anybody that says they have is just blowing smoke and don't know what they're talking about. I'm just saying that this is the triangle that should form. I'm showing some contenders that could participate in said spots in the triangle, and proposed some of the questions that each one have to answer. And now we go get to work. It's as simple as that. We go figure it out, figure out what works, what doesn't. Some poor soul in chat is going to spend any time more than 5 minutes on Huntsman just to realize that it's not it. And that's okay, because that's wasted time. And I'm just throwing shade now, but you get what I'm saying, right? Somebody might try some Slippy. Maybe it's good. Maybe it works. Maybe Slippy is the gap to where you're disruptive enough into this. You get an edge in the mirror here, and you come up with something really cool for mid range. Best of luck, but I don't think it exists. But if it does, hey, cool. You won the PT. Like, awesome. Assuming you can draft. But that's kind of where I'm at. That's your triangle. There's a couple contenders for that aggro spot. And then I think Fi loses a lot of reasons to play. Still a good deck, still does the explosive thing. I'm not hating on it, but just really loses that. And another example is like Mario could be that gap between aggro and mid-range, but there's a reason I haven't talked about this hero specifically. And them boots, man, they just fuck this deck up. I'm gonna keep it a buck, man. It's just bad. Okay, this is BS. I don't tune into a free stream on my second monitor unless the streamer has a crystal clear picture of what the meta that doesn't even exist yet. What am I not paying you for? Somebody gets it. Okay, somebody actually gets it. So that's where my thoughts are. And I would love to hear. I'm gonna keep it going for a little while. If there's any questions you have that you want me to answer, I might not have the answer, but we can discuss it. We can talk about it, kind of why it could happen, why it could not happen. Throw it in chat now. I would love to help discuss it. But that's just kind of my thoughts, and I just wanted to kind of just. This is literally how I create the tier list that I do. Is I just walk through the ripple effects of what's happening, and then I come to a conclusion. And none of this is concrete. And I say, okay, we have hell. There could be a Bolton in here that fills the combo spot with Saber. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that there is a window for combo. It exists. Okay, now it has to be fast combo because these decks aren't giving you a lot of time, but it exists. Aurora, best deck in format. I would love to hear how a 0 for 4 with a little bit more upside took a deck from kind of bad to best deck in format. I would love to hear the story of that adventure. Tell me what to play in Vegas, Mr. Streamer Man. First of all, Michael, I hope you're going to Vegas. I look forward to seeing you if you do. And as far as what to play, man, I don't know. I will say the most interesting part about this triangle, if Acilio was still hard to play, which, spoiler alert, I don't think he is anymore. I think the deck is kind of straightforward, to be honest. Because he's so easy to play, we don't have that aspect to like, oh, he's going to have less representation because he's hard to play. That's out the window. This combo deck is a bunch of fucking 0 for 4s, okay? Like, it's not that deep. So, it's one of the first times where we've had a legit combo deck that didn't have like a barrier of entry. Last time we had that was what? Probably Skeleta Visceri? Like, that was the last time we honestly had like a really good combo deck that had like no barrier to entry. And you could just kind of like, there was some skill in Viscera, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like, you didn't have to have a 5-finger forehead, bro. Like, it's not that deep. So, that makes this analysis in the triangle the most interesting because it's very hard to identify the percent. It's not a straightforward question because let's play a hypothetical situation and say that Acilio was still super big brain, hard deck to play, all that fun stuff, right? Like, let's say that that's the case. Well, now the best deck in format is the best mid-range deck. That question is so easy to answer because the whole reason you're playing these decks are to pick on this. And if there's less of it, well, guess what? It tilts the favor into this with a fringe strategy for this. And if you can create that deck, there you go. But because that doesn't exist, it makes this way harder. Does Marlin's hand rips do anything to slow down the top decks, or is she still doomed? I feel like Gravy being less popular is amazing. Yeah, Marlin does get a bump, probably. The ultimate question, here's the real answer. I think all of these aggro decks, the Marlin could strip the best card from their deck, and they probably still win. Or strip the best card from their hand like every other turn. And I think I take that back. Mine was probably pretty good into the ninjas specifically, but Dio, I don't think it's that good. Cilio, I don't know. And you just have to be horrible into like mid-range Kasai, right? It's rather light, ain't it? That was a good one. That was good. Feels like something's missing. Yeah, Kevin. I'm sorry about your hero LLing. It sucks. It sucks. I'm pretty sure you played the first Prism as well. So at least you're familiar and kind of know how difficult it is. But man, I still haven't recovered from Briar. To be honest with you, I haven't found like that click, man. Like the closest thing I've found to the joy of Briar is Tough Nut, and that here kind of sucks. Okay, and as a competitive player, nah, Okay, I want to, but nah, I can't do it. I cannot do it. So, um, yeah, as you already know, it don't get easier. It don't get easier. Marlon is amazing. Put some respect on her name. I don't know. Oh, that's another good point. I did mention the increase in diplomacy due to Dio. Marlon adversely gets hit by that. I don't know how much that's actually going to weigh into things, but it's something that does need to be considered. Okay. Light set Q1 2027 with Prism 3. Just wait a little longer. I don't know about that. I don't know. I mean, Dromai will be out before the next Prism because I mean, hell, they got AI do everything. I'm just kidding. Just too soon. Too soon. Too soon. Oh God. Um, just one more blue 6, bro. This is his time. Yeah. I don't think he needs a blue 6. I think he needs like a couple better, like a better zealous belting. That's what he needs. 2 cost, go again in some way, like another Jaws of Victory. Something like that's what he needs. I don't need no fucking blue 6. You worried about that shit? Does Gravy lose popularity because Victor LL's in Remembrance? Gravy is gonna like fatigue himself on accident. Okay, that's how susceptible he's going to be, in my opinion, to fatigue. And that's why I'm gonna call it now, right? We have seen, I'm gonna speculate here. And I hope I see Justin at the PT and I talk to him. But Justin Koo over at I forget where he lives, but like he has stuck even after the charts ban, he is stuck with Gravy the whole way. Even after like Jacob dropped it and you know, I think Brody was even on it for a while. Whatever the case, like there was that core group of players that were just really good with Gravy, topping all of the events, and Justin was the only one that like stuck with it after the charts ban. I think he actually jumped ship for the PT. I think it's that bad that like there's not even enough equity being a specialist. Now I haven't talked to him. This is pure speculation, but unless he comes up with something like crazy, or not just him, but like somebody, unless they come up with like some way to solve the fatigue problem in an efficient way, it ain't good, Chief. It ain't good is all I'm saying. So that's where I'm at, you know. Droma AI is here to poison your water with their drag. That's actually kind of funny. Reinhardt is worse in this meta thanks to Victor Future LL. It does not help. And historically, uh, Reinhardt's worst matchup has been aggro, and that's exactly what's moving into the meta, not out. So yes, Reinhardt does get worse. But the funny part is Gravy was a bad matchup for Reinhardt, in my opinion, and he's gone now. So, but it's not. That's why you have to look at all the ripple effects, and you can't just Gravy's gone, Reiner, good. You know, you can't say that. You have to say what's coming in Gravy's departure, and that is aggro decks. And if aggro decks are here, that is historically not good for Reiner. This is from the Philippines. That's right. That is correct. So disruptive mid range, that would be a great place to be in this format. Disruptive mid range is a great spot to be in this format. That is peak analysis right there. Gravy for life. But yeah, it's so bad. At least you know you're making a mistake. But who in this meta is fatiguing? I don't think you're understanding. Like, people are gonna like accidentally fatigue this hero. That's how bad it's going to be. Like, I'll get Kasai is the perfect example. Like, Kasai is one of the matchups where you kind of pivot back and forth a little bit. You play a little bit of chicken where you just like, oh, am I fatiguing you or am I just clearing allies? You know, and the gravy kind of has a plan for fatigue, right? Well, I think like now there's enough room because you're not throwing 13 different boats at them. You can legit just like play a mid range game plan with gravy. And then out of nowhere, depending on what they block with, what they don't set up, you can be like, I've already taken 15 damage, but fuck it, I'll fatigue from here. Like literally. So that's actually the best way to explain it. Imagine if you didn't have to decide your fatigue game plan until turn 8. That's the problem that Gravy has to overcome. And there ain't a card in Flesh and Blood that fixes that. I don't know. Disruptive mid-range. So Valda. No, that is not what I meant. Valda is trash. Okay. Yeah. Valda ain't it. I mean, like, what are you actually beating by playing? Your on hits ain't that good, and everybody's got armor. Nah, Valda ain't it. No shot. Ira's disruptive mid range, that could be, that makes sense. PTLA is the last big event, not considering individual calling before we have 2 sets released, right? Arathi and Master Pack Warrior. So going to be a short meta. Anywho, yes, that is correct. You are correct. So I mean, really, like Master Pack Warrior comes out like a week or two after, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but I think it comes out shortly. So depending on how impactful that set is, this could be like a one event meta. Literally, could be like a one event meta, depending on how good the Warriors are afterwards. Azuri is back. Holy. Huh. Azuri. That shit hero. Huh. Oh my god. No way. I mean, there's no way it's good. Like, I love the idea of it because, in theory, right? Like, you're gonna do fine into the ninjas because you just like hide your shit. You're super disruptive. Like, that's cool. Dio, I'm not sold, but like, sure, maybe you figure. See, I'd like fatigue and some. How do you beat this? And how do you beat this? This you have the disruption. You get die to a. You lose the arcane one, but like maybe. But I mean, you just get farmed by like a good mid range deck that actually has a D react in it. That's your that's your problem. If they have 0 for 4 D reacts, you lose the game. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's cool. And if I saw one do really well, I would not be shocked. But I would be impressed. Okay, I would be impressed. And once again, this is not just a flat out tier list or anything. I was just kind of showing examples. Kasai's spot here just indicates mid range. That very well could be RKO. It very well it could be Ziggy. It could be Tough Nut. Just kidding. It could be Fang. It could be, there's a lot of options here of what this mid-range deck could be. Okay. So there are options 100%. I'm just trying to kind of show the triangle, the thought process, because the problem is I don't there's no real value in adding like the list of heroes, right? Because we first have to figure this shit out. And then we can start talking specific heroes. Or at least that's how I always do it. Maybe it's not the perfect way. I don't know, but I think it's pretty decent. Correct. There is no way. That's great. That goes hard. No, she's cooked. Got the brew. What do you think of Ziggy? Ziggy is this is the wild card. So when I placed this hero in my tier list, I had him at I think the top of A, like where everybody else was just down on him. Everybody was dogging him. I was like top A, okay, or maybe bottom of A. I don't remember. He was in A tier, and it wasn't because I didn't know about the deck list that top aided. I didn't know about anything really. I just said, okay, you have a lightning card pool, you have an illusionist card pool. Those together have to be able to cultivate something that is good. It has to. I don't know what the hell it is. I don't even know what weapon it uses. But what I'm saying is somebody that can spend more time on it than me is going to figure something out. And that doesn't go anywhere. You can change the meta, you can develop it, you can do that. He could and we've seen it. He can fill the mid-range spot. He can fill the aggro. I don't know if he's going to fill the aggro spot. The aggro deck was cool, but it's a lot less cool when everybody else is doing the same thing, just a little better. So I think this deck has to result more to like an Enigma kind of, refractor deal, whatever, those slower, grindier, mid-rangier version. But yeah, he very well could be the mid-range deck to beat, right? It very well could be. I don't know, because maybe you play Ziggy because you want equity into the mirror or the mid-range mirror, right? Because he typically is going to do really good because he gets so much value from the refractor. And if he can do an etchings and just keep it around, like that's GG's. So that is kind of that's kind of the idea. That's my opinion. RKO isn't disruptive enough, and the aggro decks drop his life too quick. That's actually a really good point. That's actually a really good point. And I think you're absolutely correct. You want to know what's so cool about Azuri? My signed foil spec Azuri card. That's dope. Low-key Knife Through is actually a good card, though. Sure. Get this guy some makeup. What is this? It's not a tier list. My God. Oh, my God. One day they're going to learn. We're just throwing some heroes up to show vertical movements. That's all we're doing. We're trying to establish the rough version of what will be a triangle. Techlocopium, if mid-range is good. No. No, because there'd be too much aggro floating around. Oh, get me the makeup. No, it's actually my fault because I don't have it labeled anywhere. You're like probably the 40th person that's hopped in here. What Gravy's in F tier? What? just wild stuff. Da, da. Is Mario still top assassin? I think there's probably, to be honest, but for real, like the The problem is historically what has happened is when Slippy's good, Mario's bad. When Mario's good, Slippy's bad because you obviously don't want to mix the two. Everybody knows Mario's on the decline. That is no secret. Everybody knows that. So if there was ever a world where Slippy was going to make a comeback, this might be it. This very well could be it. And now we just discussed it as serious. I can't, bro. I can't. It's Missouri, bro. Trust. Yeah, we discussed something all right. We discussed something. But that's my thought process. And hopefully if I can stream next week and I'm not too busy trying to figure all this shit out, I will, be able to throw out some of my findings, what I tried, what didn't work, things like that. Just kind of give an update in between. But I mean, I'll put it this way. If Slippy doesn't make a resurgence, then the assassin class as a whole is just in a rut. I'll put it that way. Like, yeah. Doesn't Dory farm the aggro decks? So this is I've had this conversation with Josh probably upwards of 100 times. And if you ask him, he's going to say yes. He's going to say you build Unga Bunga is his preferred terminology. Dory deck that has like 13 ways to twinning blade, quadruple, double backflip, spin, hit. You could build that, right? The question is it consistent? Does it do all the things, and does it do the things fast enough? Because a lot of these aggro decks are so quick. Like again, against a Katsu, you're fine. You got a full fridge. Your car's block good. Like, yeah, Dory will tear up Katsu, no doubt. Dio, like, are you gonna have enough 4 blocks to fatigue him? And if not, like, I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's as straightforward. And then you have the whole situation where now you're bad into probably Kasai because you just can get outvalued, and then you're really bad into Acilio. So yeah, you might farm some of the aggro decks, but I don't know overall. And Gravy leaving really hurt you, right? Really hurt you. So I don't see a window for Dory yet, but Mastery Pack Guard Warrior is obviously right around the corner, so that could very well change very quickly. Beauty tier. Oh god. My current issue with Slippy is you don't have enough disruption. There's no bonds that you can force aggro, lose all tempo. That's a good point. Yeah, and you're the whole like the premise for playing that deck is to be able to disrupt. And if you can't do that good enough, then yeah, I would agree with you. It ain't the play. Goliath wears the diaper. Reinhardt damage is big and beats block slop. There should not be much block slop in the meta going forward. Shouldn't be. Unless there's a breakout fatigue deck. Which hero wears a diaper though? I mean, it's gotta be Riptide, right? Gotta be, bro. Literally looks like he shit himself. Oh man. Tell you what. I knew this shit I say Azuri one time and he just pops up. God dang it. No, nobody talked about Azuri. Just do not listen to the last 15 minutes of this stream. I don't even know what that hero does. I don't even know what that hero does. I'm a marionette main for the past year or so, uneasy traveling to Vegas with a hero I think won't be good. Um, so one thing that I want to kind of just suggest is play around with some ideas to where you don't just fall apart if you don't mark the opponent, or you have more ways to mark the opponent. Because really, the deck is great. The deck is phenomenal if you can just get that first mark. So try adding what's that card? Reaper's Call, where you discard and just mark. Find some creative ways to mark the opponent, and maybe that's enough. Test it. If he would be good enough if you could just consistently get the mark. Problem, the real problem is 80 to 90% of the decks at that tournament are going to have those boots. So every match that you test, that you try to figure out, just assume that they're on the boots and they're going to try to stop the first time you mark them. Just make that assumption and try to figure something out. If you can figure something out, you'll be in a great spot. You have disruption, good numbers, like it's a good spot. If you can't, that's where it gets dicey. Tier list validated through diaper comments. That's what I'm talking about. Riptide do be shitting though. I mean, not a tier list. Maybe Puffin. She is hurt by inconsistency. He's 100% right. What's up, Collins? Nobody talked about Azuri. Nobody. Only prey spotters wasn't a hat. Tell you what. Well, that's where we're at. Okay, chat. That's my thought process. Once again, not a tier list. I'm just saying that there are avenues that need to be addressed. And this is just an estimate of what the triangle will form as, what heroes partake each section of the triangle is completely up for debate. The mid-range spot that is Kasai could be Ziggy, could be RKO, could be Fang, could be whatever. I don't know. Riptide, hell, I don't know. And then there's combo. Is the combo deck is more than likely just going to be a Celio, but I don't know. Maybe there's some crazy like talk a big game, or there's a Saber Bolton deck that makes I don't know, but the combo has to exist. It just makes too much sense to really combat the mid range. And then you have just aggro, and the aggro can take so many different variants. We know Dio is going to show up. We know that is going to happen once Victor departs. But the question is like the remainder, is it Syndra? Is it Katsu? Is it Phi? And I think in priority, and then also Aurora as well. I have it kind of in this priority where Aurora is probably going to be a little bit more represented than Katsu. But I think that makes the most sense to play Syndra, in my opinion. But like I respect the idea of Aurora and then maybe Katsu as well, and then less so Phi, not because it's a bad deck, not because of C tier meme, but I think you just needed that explosiveness when Victor was around. But because Victor is gone, I think it's advantageous to trade explosiveness and sealing for consistency and streamlining. That is my opinion. Damien, you're literally trolling, bro. I've said 14 times this ain't no damn tier list. If you think Mario is not going to perform, do you still bring the boots? Yes. Because the boots are good into so many things. But I mean, that's actually an interesting point. Like, if you think they'll be scared off, do you leave? Because it's good into Syndra. You get a free, I don't give a fuck about mask turn. That's valuable, right? You block on the third chain link, you pop boots on their flick, and you just say, you know what? I don't care about anything else. And you get a good like 4-card handout, trade them down, and then go from there. How much that affects Syndra, it can't be great, but is it catastrophic? I don't know. Then you have Vinny. If Vinny makes a big comeback, then the boots you literally get like 4 value out of the boots. It's insane most of the time. And yeah, just really good. So yeah, the ominous ward boots. If you're saying Gravian is not real after this, Valda gets very good. She annihilates aggro. I mean, look, if what you're saying is true, and she doesn't just fold to the mid range in the combo Celia, like maybe, but historically that deck has not done great into those. Ira is another good example of mid range. That's entirely possible. My takeaway from the stream is that Jarl and Gravy are winning all events from now on. Yeah, that's what's happening. That is what's happening. Legitimate question: how real is Ira right now? Fatigue Ira is dead. I think she relied on Remembrance way too much. But like mid range aggro, I think it's fine. You can fit all the disruptive card, the 2-for-6s, the race face, the weakest links, the CNCs. You can fit all of those conveniently and give them break points, which is really good. So I don't think it's a bad deck. The ultimate question is it fast enough for Acilio? Is it good enough into Kasai or whatever the mid-range identity becomes? And kind of like what's going to happen from there is interesting and up for debate. But you're on the right path as far as idea. Like it could meet the needs, if you will. Thanks for putting Jarl in C tier. I got to go win the PT now. Is that before or after you lose the winning in? It's a 90-10? Is that before or after? Huh, Damien? Just context for the stream. He was on a winning in for top 8 at Nats. And he played against Engravy and like in the bottom, all of his, what's the important card? The one that blows up, that puts the counter on the compass, whatever that card is, Frozen Death, whatever, Crumble. All 3 copies were literally at the bottom, like 10 cards of his deck. It was actually when I say like he low rolled, and he was playing against Tom, which Tom's a really good player as well. So like it's one of those situations where Tom is such a good player that if you low roll that bad, like you're not going to get out of it is the problem. It was super. It was great to see Tom top 8. That's always exciting. But at the same time, it was disappointing to see Damien kind of just. That's not one of those ways that you kind of want to lose, And you get the good matchup. You're like, oh, I got this, and then worst case happens. Unfortunate. Never underestimate the captain's power. Even without his compass, he can still navigate the 7 seas straight to no cards in deck. Ever since that hero has came out, he's been close to the top of every tier list except for this previous meta before Omens came out, where he kind of disappeared for a while before Victor kind of showed back up. That was the lowest I ever had him, and that was like bottom of A, probably. So I've been a huge Gravy stan. And if I was to put him on a tier list right now, I'm not exaggerating when I say like he is mid B at best. Mid B at absolute best. Like you couldn't even have an honest conversation with me to put him in A. And I've always had him in A or S. Hell, I think 3 tier lists I've had him as the best deck in the game. I am as biased as possible for that hero. Thoughts on Lyeth? I would love to tell you the answer to that question, but I don't know. I haven't seen what a good Lyeth list looks like. I haven't got that far. But with the talk a big game, I know that's what everybody's talking about. Like maybe there's something there, but I haven't had the time to look into it. I just don't know. Just be honest with you. I do not know. Aurora in A tier as well, bro. Needs to pass the blunt. Brother, this ain't a tier list. My God. Oh, God. Not a tier list. We're just showing vertical movement. If this was a tier list, just future reference for everybody. If I'm doing an actual tier list, you gonna know. Okay? I'm gonna advertise it as such. I'm gonna put that shit in the thumbnail. I'm gonna put it in the title because everybody loves those words. Okay? This ain't it. All we were doing was trying to identify a formation of a triangle, which is aggro, combo, / arcane, and mid range, and we were putting in possible heroes that could occupy that space. And then talking about winners and losers and how they move up and down and things like that. I don't think Jarl was actually C tier. I'm just saying he lost a lot from Remembrance going. Like he did. So that's just why, this is just moving up and down, showing vertical advection. Okay. Energy transfer. We're doing thermodynamics here. Okay. Being a shit hero cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. But I know how to make these tier list comments go away. You just take it off. That's the big brain right there. But in all seriousness, I want to thank everybody so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it always in these discussions. I hope that everybody got something to value out from it. Once again, this stream was not from a position of I have discovered anything. I literally just laid out what my thought process and then what I'm going to spend the next week or so trying to answer. And then maybe I'll have some answers, a answer or two. And then we'll go from there in our prep for Pro Tour Las Vegas. And if you do go to that event, please say hi. I would love to talk. Thanks for the great deal. People are trolls. I love it though. I love it. But thanks everybody seriously for joining. I really do appreciate it. I always enjoy the discussion. Yeah, I will see everybody here in the next one.